The average penis size is actually irrelevant. Yeah, I said it. And I know the title got your attention because you probably thought I was about to tell you a number. Maybe you expected a stat from a medical journal. Maybe you thought I was going to confirm some story you heard in a locker room or read on the internet at 2 a.m. But here's the truth. That number, whatever it is, doesn't matter nearly as much as you've been led to believe. What matters is the story you're telling yourself about what that number means. Because this is never really about size. It's about worth. It's about confidence. It's about whether you wake up in the morning feeling enough exactly as you are. We live in a culture obsessed with comparison. Everywhere you look, someone is telling you what normal is supposed to be, what ideal looks like, what average is, and whether you fall above or below that imaginary line. We measure everything: height, weight, salary, Instagram followers, GPA, bench press, how many likes you got on your last post. And then, for reasons that are half ridiculous and half tragic, we decided to put the human body into that same ridiculous scoreboard system. And here's the kicker. When you compare yourself to a made-up average, you almost always end up feeling like you're losing. Because averages are numbers stripped of context. They tell you nothing about you, your life, your relationships, or your happiness. But they're powerful because they hook into our deepest fear that we're not enough. If you've ever worried you're less than, because you think you don't measure up literally or metaphorically, then you know exactly how heavy that fear can get. It makes you second guess yourself. It makes you shrink in situations where you should stand tall. It makes you try to compensate with bravado, or maybe it makes you hide. And the whole time, you're thinking that if you could just somehow hit that magic number, whatever the average is, then you'd feel confident, but you wouldn't, because confidence doesn't come from being statistically above average. Confidence comes from deciding you are enough right now with what you've got, and then showing up in life like you mean it. I want you to think about it this way. Let's say tomorrow you wake up and a genie snaps his fingers and suddenly you're above average. According to the world's official measurements, do you think that's going to rewrite every insecurity you've been carrying for years? No, because insecurities don't live in your body. They live in your mind. You don't fix them by changing a number. You fix them by changing the way you see yourself. You fix them by choosing to stop letting meaningless statistics dictate your self-worth. You fix them by realizing that the people who truly love and value you are not carrying around a ruler or a chart. They're looking at your energy, your kindness, your humor, your presence. They care about how you make them feel, not the measurement of one body part. And here's the thing most people never say out loud. The person you're most worried about impressing isn't a partner. It's you. It's the version of yourself that's been trained by years of subtle messages to think, I'll be confident when I look a certain way, when I hit a certain number, when I fit into a certain category. But that's a trap. The moment you get there, you move the goalpost again, because you've wired your brain to think worth is something you earn by meeting some external metric. It's not. Worth is something you claim. You don't wait for it. You decide it right now. So no, I'm not going to stand here and tell you the average penis size, because I refuse to feed a conversation that keeps people stuck comparing themselves to a number that means nothing about their value as a human being. I will tell you this: stop chasing average or above average or whatever imaginary trophy you think is out there. Start chasing being the most present, engaged, kind, bold, and authentic version of yourself you can possibly be. Because here's what happens when you do. You stop worrying about measurements and start making an impact. You stop being afraid of being less than, and you start becoming more than in every way that matters. And when you show up like that, no one's asking for your stats. They're too busy feeling your presence, your energy, and your confidence. The average penis size is actually irrelevant. The only thing that's worth measuring is the size of your courage to live unapologetically. And that, my friend, is something you can grow as much as you want. Confidence is a choice, not a statistic. That's the truth most people don't want to hear, because it's easier to believe that confidence is something handed to you once you've earned it, once you've met some magical benchmark or hit some external target. We're conditioned to think that once we're taller, richer, stronger, leaner, more attractive, more accomplished, or above average in some physical measurement, then confidence will just arrive like a package on the doorstep. But that's not how it works. Confidence isn't delivered to you, it's built by you. It's a decision you make every single day to back yourself, no matter where you stand in relation to some chart, some trend, or some cultural ideal. The problem is, most of us have been trained to link confidence to statistics from a young age. In school, you're ranked by grades and scores. In sports, you're measured by times, distances, and win-loss records. In the workplace, you're evaluated with performance metrics and salary numbers. Social media cranks the volume up even louder by turning everything into likes, followers, and views. And so, without even realizing it, we start to believe that our worth is a scoreboard, and our confidence depends on being on the right side of it. When it comes to something like body measurements, this thinking becomes even more toxic, because now it's not just about what you do, it's about what you are. If the number attached to you is below average, the conclusion you draw is that you're somehow less than. That belief digs in deep, and every time you compare yourself to someone else, you feed it. But the truth is, confidence doesn't have anything to do with those numbers. It's an inside job. It's not the measurement that determines how you walk into a room. It's what you believe about yourself as you do it. Someone could be statistically above average and still shrink into the background because they've convinced themselves they're not enough. Someone else could be far below whatever the world says is ideal and still command the space because they've decided they're worthy of being there. That decision isn't based on data, it's based on mindset. Here's the part that's tricky. Confidence feels like it should be the result of proof, and proof feels like it comes from numbers. If you've ever thought, when I hit this number, then I'll feel confident, you know the logic. But what happens when you hit that number and nothing changes? The target moves. You suddenly need a bigger number, a better rank, a higher statistic, because you haven't actually solved the core problem. You've just changed the variable. Confidence isn't waiting for you on the other side of an average line. If anything, chasing it that way only keeps it further out of reach, because every step forward shifts your goalpost again. The people who have real, unshakable confidence tend to have one thing in common. They decided to feel that way before there was any reason to. They acted like they were enough before they had any external proof to justify it. They put themselves in situations where they had to show up fully, even when they didn't feel ready. And through action, they trained themselves to trust their own ability to handle life. That's the difference. Confidence doesn't come from having all the right stats. It comes from proving to yourself over and over that you can handle whatever happens regardless of the stats. Think about the people you admire most. Is it because of a number attached to them? Probably not. It's because of how they move through the world, how they hold themselves, how they make others feel. It's about presence, not measurement. You can take two people with identical statistics, same height, same weight, same salary, same physical measurements, and one of them will own the room while the other disappears into it. The difference is not in the data, it's in the decision to show up like you matter. When you stop waiting for some number to give you permission to be confident, you stop putting your power in someone else's hands. You stop letting average, or above average, define whether you're allowed to feel worthy. You realize that you can choose confidence today, in this exact moment, without changing a single thing about your statistics. And that choice changes everything about the way you carry yourself, the way people respond to you, and the opportunities you notice and take. Confidence becomes something you create, not something you hope will arrive someday. And once you see that, you understand that no chart, no measurement, and no comparison can touch it. People value presence, connection, and energy over measurements. That's something most people forget because we've been conditioned to think the first thing others notice and care about is what we look like, how we measure up, or how we compare to some physical ideal. But the truth is, the way you make someone feel will always leave a deeper, longer-lasting impression than any number could. You can meet someone who checks every box on paper, has all the so-called right stats, but if they bring no warmth, no spark, no genuine interest in you, they'll fade from memory almost instantly. On the other hand, someone who shows up with authentic presence, focused, engaged, fully there, can outshine anyone with better measurements because they create an emotional connection that numbers can't compete with. Presence is magnetic. It's the art of actually being there, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. When you look someone in the eye, listen without interrupting, and make them feel like in that moment they are the most important person in the room, they will remember you. Presence signals respect, attention, and care, and people instinctively gravitate toward it. Measurements can't replicate that feeling. A statistic doesn't hug you back. A number doesn't make you feel seen. The impact you leave on others is built in those moments where you choose to show up fully, not distracted, not half-eked out, but all in. Connection is the bridge between two people, and it's built through understanding, empathy, and trust. You don't create connection by flashing a resume or flaunting some above-average attribute. You create it by listening to someone's story, sharing yours, and finding that common thread that makes you feel less alone in the world. It's the way you lean in when they speak, the way you remember the small details they told you weeks ago, the way you laugh at their jokes, not because you're trying to impress them, but because you're genuinely engaged. That's what people take with them after the conversation ends. That's what they replay in their minds. Energy is what you project, and it's one of the most contagious forces you carry. You've probably met people who walk into a room and instantly lift it. They're not necessarily the tallest, the fittest, or the most traditionally attractive person there, but they have this energy, vibrant, positive, confident, without arrogance, that makes everyone feel lighter. That energy comes from within, from how they see themselves and the world, not from anything they can measure with a ruler or scale. People feel your energy before they process your words. If it's warm, open, and inviting, it draws them in without effort. If it's cold, self-conscious, or defensive, they pick up on that too. Energy communicates faster and more powerfully than numbers ever could. What often gets overlooked is how presence, connection, and energy are choices, not accidents. They're skills you can cultivate, and they're accessible to anyone regardless of what statistics they carry. You can choose to put away your phone when someone is speaking to you. You can choose to be curious about another person's life instead of waiting for your turn to talk. You can choose to walk into a space with your shoulders back, eyes up, ready to engage with the people around you. You can choose to project an energy that lifts rather than drains. Those choices don't require you to hit a certain number. They require you to care about the experience you're creating for others. And when you create that experience, you shift the way people see you. Someone might forget what you looked like in exact detail, but they will not forget how you made them feel. They might not recall your measurements, but they'll remember that you gave them your full attention, that you made them laugh, that you seemed genuinely interested in who they were. That kind of impact leaves longer than any physical impression. It's why some people remain unforgettable even when they don't fit the so-called ideal mold, and why others with perfect stats fade into the background. The more you focus on presence, connection, and energy, the less those measurements matter in your own mind, too. You stop obsessing over whether you stack up to some imagined average because you see firsthand that the things people truly value have nothing to do with numbers. You start to understand that while someone might notice your appearance first, they stay for the way you make them feel, for the authenticity you bring, and for the energy you share. And once you get that, you start to show up in a completely different way, one that's not about proving you're enough based on measurements, but about proving you can make an impact that no statistic can measure. Stop chasing numbers. Start building courage and authenticity. Chasing numbers is one of the most exhausting, never-ending games you can play, because no matter what number you reach, there's always another one ahead. It's the trap of I'll be happy when. You tell yourself you'll feel good when you hit a certain weight, when you earn a certain income, when you have a certain number of followers, when you can bench a certain amount, when you measure up in a certain way. And the moment you reach it, you realize the satisfaction is temporary because your mind has already moved the target. This is why chasing numbers never gives you lasting confidence. It's a treadmill, and no matter how fast you run, the scenery doesn't change. Numbers have their place in certain areas of life. They can help track progress, set goals, and measure specific outcomes. But when it comes to self-worth, they're dangerous because they make you outsource your value to something external. If your confidence depends on a statistic, you've handed control of your self-esteem to something you can't fully control. The danger is that you start living for the scoreboard instead of living for your actual life. You start making choices based on how they'll affect the number rather than how they'll make you feel or whether they align with who you are. That's when you lose touch with your authenticity because you're no longer showing up as yourself. You're showing up as whatever you think will get you the highest score. Courage is the antidote to this cycle. Courage is what allows you to show up as yourself without waiting for the numbers to say it's safe. It's stepping into situations that scare you because you know growth is on the other side, not because you're trying to hit a specific metric. Courage is saying what you really think, wearing what you actually like, pursuing what truly excites you, even if it doesn't fit the mold or earn approval from everyone watching. It's standing in your own values even when there's pressure to conform to what's popular or expected. And unlike numbers, courage compounds over time. The more you act on it, the stronger it gets. Authenticity is the other piece of the equation, and it's just as critical. Authenticity means being rooted in who you are and letting that guide how you show up. It's not about performing for approval or curating yourself to fit what you think people want. It's about alignment, making your actions, your words, and your choices match your real values and beliefs. The hard part is that authenticity often requires courage because being yourself means risking disapproval. It means some people won't get you, some people won't like you, and some people will judge you. But it also means that the people who do connect with you will connect for real, not for some polished version of you designed to look above average in some category. The power of authenticity is that it frees you from the constant need to chase. When you're rooted in who you are, you're not scrambling for the next number to validate you. You measure your life in experiences, in the quality of your relationships, in the risks you took to be true to yourself. You stop living for comparison because you understand that you can't be measured against someone else. You're not supposed to be like them in the first place. And this doesn't mean you stop striving or setting goals. It means your goals become a reflection of your true values instead of someone else's standard. The combination of courage and authenticity creates a kind of confidence that numbers can't touch. You stop being swayed by temporary highs or lows because your worth isn't attached to them anymore. When a number drops, you don't crumble. When it rises, you don't get drunk on it. You become steady because your foundation is built on who you are and what you stand for, not on a fluctuating scoreboard. And here's the paradox. When you stop obsessing over numbers and focus on courage and authenticity, the numbers often take care of themselves. You naturally attract better opportunities, deeper relationships, and more respect because people can sense when someone is real and self-assured. Most people spend their lives trying to look valuable instead of actually living in a way that feels valuable. Numbers make it easy to fake it. Hit the right stat, post it online, and you can create the illusion of success. But courage and authenticity don't care about illusions, they care about substance. They are about the kind of life you live when no one is watching. The choices you make when there's nothing to gain except the quiet satisfaction of knowing you were true to yourself. And the irony is that this is exactly the kind of life that other people find magnetic. The kind that draws respect and admiration without you ever chasing it.